Edmonton. A stroll through Edmonton's river valley with a bottle of wine, as idyllic as it might sound, is very much illegal. While smoking marijuana could be allowed in most of Edmonton's public spaces after a city council committee endorsed a liberal cannabis bylaw earlier this month, drinking outside will still land you a ticket. You can't drink in public in Edmonton, but a city councillor and a public health expert say we should consider trying it out. Dreamstime councillor Ben Henderson says he's very interested in having a conversation around whether to allow drinking in public in Edmonton, courtesy City of Edmonton. At least once councillor, however, says he would be very interested in a conversation about changing that age-old rule. Ben Henderson said, "Some of our drinking restrictions are hangovers from prohibition," and points to cities in Europe that allow public drinking and have fewer drinking-related problems. "I think you'd have to be very thoughtful about how you did it, because I think the transition would be a very rocky one. The cultural habit that has embedded itself in European cities around this would not happen overnight," Henderson said. Article continued below, "But I've wondered for a long time if we were actually shooting ourselves in the foot with these really restrictive drinking laws. Drinking laws fall under provincial jurisdiction, so any changes would have to go through the Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis Commission." Henderson said the AGLC has made some recent progress by loosening restrictions for drinking on patios, for example, and said he would like to discuss public drinking reforms with council if the province gave them the authority to do so. "I think a lot of people will respond with angst over it," he said. "All of this stuff should be evidence-based. We shouldn't be doing this based on anecdote. I think those are the kind of questions we should be asking coolly and calmly, and find out what the answers are." Council's Community Services Committee voted earlier this month to follow provincial regulations on public pot smoking, with some additional restrictions. Pending council approval, smoking marijuana will be allowed in most public spaces but prohibited in some spots including patios, transit stations, family-friendly attractions, and near schools and hospitals. Article continued below. Related. Edmonton's lax pot smoking proposal pleases industry but stresses out other businesses. Edmonton Council Committee votes for lenient approach to public pot smoking. Dan Voigtlander, a public health professor at the University of Alberta and director of the Injury Prevention Centre, said there are two schools of thought on letting people drink in public. One is that public drinking is social disruption and public spaces are shared spaces, so they need to be somewhat sanitized. So you get things like, "I want to take my kids to the park but it's full of homeless people drinking so I don't want to go there," he said. On the other hand, he said, public drinking is a social equity issue in the sense that some people don't have a place to go drink. He added that barring public drinking can also affect some ethnic or indigenous groups' rights to celebrate in open spaces. From an injury prevention angle, however, Voigtlander said data shows increased access to alcohol leads to more injuries and health problems. While bringing a beer to a picnic in Harelick Park is unlikely to cause any problems, a few bad apples could ruin it for everyone. We've all heard the stories about campgrounds. People will go there and party all night long. If scenarios like that happen more often, then there's going to be a public outcry, he said. Weighing both sides, Voigtlander said opening up a district of the city to public drinking would be worth a shot. Have your say, just give it a try, and if it causes problems, cut it off. If it doesn't cause problems, well then you've got a more vibrant nightlife, he said. There's no harm in just sort of trying it out, I don't think. Sharon Polsky, vice president of the Rocky Mountain Civil Liberties Association, said it's refreshing to travel in Europe, where it's the norm to have a bottle of wine or beer with a picnic. She feels people will live up to the expectations put on them, and most people would handle the added freedom responsibly. Prohibition doesn't work. Let people behave like responsible adults. they cross the line and commit a criminal act while they are intoxicated. If they drive while they're impaired, whether it's liquor, drugs, lack of sleep, there are consequences. Polsky said, public policy and law based on what-ifs, hypotheticals, is what we're living under right now. What if something happens? It's knee-jerk reaction based not on facts but on emotional responses. AGLC spokesperson Heather Hallman said in an email that any amendments to Alberta's Gaming and Liquor Act require changes to legislation and consultations with the provincial government, law enforcement agencies, municipalities, and citizens. But she did not shut the door to the possibility. There are not any current plans to make such amendments. However, the concept of entertainment districts is on our roadmap as we review and update liquor policies. Hallman wrote. The AGLC continues to work with stakeholders and look for opportunities that lead to progressive developments in the industry.